across the quiet town of Pelling, tucked away in the hills of Sikkim. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and pine, as if the morning itself was freshly laundered. Shops along the main street still had their shutters drawn, and the only sounds were the occasional cawing of crows and the faint rustle of leaves as a breeze swept through the narrow lanes. Deekila Sherpa walked briskly, her messenger bag slung across her shoulder and her headphones dangling loosely around her neck. She had just picked up her morning chai from a roadside stall run by an elderly man who had served the town for decades. He always greeted her with a knowing smile, as if her presence was part of the town's daily rhythm. Her life wasn't extraordinary by any means, but she found comfort in its simplicity. She worked as a freelance writer, often spending her days typing away at a small wooden desk in her cozy apartment. Her workspace was cluttered with notebooks, pens, and an assortment of odd knickknacks she had picked up over the years. Tiny Buddha statues, carved stones, and a single faded photograph of her late grandmother, always watching over her with a serene smile. The apartment itself was modest but inviting, with wooden floors that creaked slightly underfoot and large windows that overlooked the rolling hills. It was the kind of place where the light filtered through the curtains just right in the mornings, bathing everything in a soft golden glow. Deekila loved it there. It felt like home in a way no other place ever had. Her mornings followed a comforting routine. After chai, she'd scroll through her phone, catching up on emails, glancing at Reddit, and skimming through headlines. This morning was no different. She sat cross-legged on the floor by her window, sipping her tea and chuckling quietly at the endless stream of memes. But as she scrolled, something caught her attention. A link shared in a niche thread about urban legends. The title read, "Watch full video, Deekila Sherpa X Reddit original." She blinked, tilting her head in confusion. Her name wasn't exactly common. Seeing it paired with such an enigmatic title was unsettling in a vague, distant way, but curiosity quickly overtook her unease. It was probably some kind of coincidence, a prank, or maybe even a harmless attempt at going viral. She saved the link for later, telling herself she'd check it out when she had the time. The day unfolded as usual. By late morning, she was seated at her desk, fingers dancing across her laptop keyboard as she worked on an article about local folklore. Her editor had suggested the topic, knowing it was something close to her heart. Growing up, she'd heard endless stories about the spirits and myths that were said to inhabit the hills, passed down from her grandmother and the older folks in town. Writing about them felt like preserving a part of her history, a connection to something ancient and intangible. The hours passed in a blur of typing, editing, and daydreaming as the faint sounds of life outside filtered in. The chatter of school children walking home, the distant clanging of bells from the monastery. By the time she looked up from her screen, the sun was beginning to set, painting the hills in a fiery orange. She stretched, deciding she deserved a break. She grabbed her phone, remembering the link she had saved earlier. Clicking on it brought up a video player, the screen showing nothing but static. She frowned, her finger hovering over the play button. But then her phone buzzed with a notification from a friend asking about dinner plans, and she set it aside, forgetting about the video entirely for the moment. By the time night fell, Pelling had grown still, the kind of quiet that feels amplified in a small town. Deekila sat on her balcony, wrapped in a blanket and nursing a second cup of tea. The stars were out in full force, dotting the sky like